Welcome to all students to this new platform of study. The unit that we are going to start today is ecology, and the topic that we will look into is introduction to edaphic factors. Now, before we look into what are edaphic factors, let us take a brief look into what is ecology. So, ecology is the study of relationships between organisms and their physical environment. So, it is a branch of biology that deals with relations of organism with one another and with their physical environment. So, there are so many organisms present. It could be human beings, animals, insects, birds. So it is the relationship of all these organisms with one another and with the physical environment, that is the outer environment in which these organisms live. This is called ecology. Ecology word, this was coined by Ernst Haeckel in 1866. He was a German zoologist. Now in the definition it has been mentioned relationship of organism with the physical environment. So let us look into what are these living organism. These are the biotic component of the ecosystem. These are the living component of the ecosystem, whereas the physical environment is the abiotic component or abiotic factors of the ecosystem. So some of these abiotic factors or abiotic components are temperature, sunlight, pH, soil, and all those factors that are non-living. Now that we have seen about ecology, let us have a look into what are abiotic factors which relates to the physical environment. So as I mentioned before, abiotic factor are all those factors that relates to the physical environment, all those factors that are non-living. So this abiotic factor can be divided into two types. These are edaphic factors and climatic factors. Now this edaphic factors, it deals with all the factors, all the properties that relates to the soil. So these could be the soil type, soil structure, soil pH, soil texture, soil temperature, soil moisture, soil composition, soil profile, soil erosion, soil conservation. So it relates everything to soil. These are called the edaphic factors. Now then climatic factors are all those factors that relates to climate. These are temperature, sunlight, atmospheric pressure, humidity, radiation of air, chemical composition of water and atmosphere. Now in our next slide we will look into what are edaphic factors in brief. This will lead us to our topic, right? So edaphic factors, it is obtained from a Greek word called edaphos, which means ground or soil. These are the factors relating to chemical and physical properties of soil. So all those factors that relates to all kind of properties of soil has been included in edaphic factors. Now why is studying edaphic factors important? Because edaphic factors gives the characteristic of soil. We can identify that what type of soil is it, whether it is a sandy soil, whether it is a clayey soil or any other kind of soil. And based on the characteristic, the organism living there differ. That means that with the characteristic of soil, the organisms also differ. Say for example, there is an area with sandy soil, then the organisms living there will differ than those that live in clayey soil. For example, in plants, in trees also, those that grow in sandy soil, that is beachy area, and those that grow in clayey soil will differ drastically. Then it affects the ability of soil to sustain biological production and diversity. Now, any soil, when it will be rich in organic matter, when it will be rich in organic content, it will have more biological production and good biological diversity. So a soil which is rich in content will have good biological production and diversity, rather than a soil which is poor in organic content. So edaphic factors ultimately affects the ability of soil. The more rich the soil, the more better the diversity. And it is a very important part of the Mother Earth, making it an important part of the ecosystem. We know that we live, almost all of the organisms we live on soil, which is the base, right? May it be construction work, may it be the dwelling place of microorganisms, may it be the dwelling place of plants, animals, the base of our houses, even all the construction work, it is the soil that is been taken into account. So it is important for us to know about factors to which we belong, right? So now let us have a look into edaphic factors that we are going to study. These are soil composition, origin and development of soil, soil moisture, soil profile, soil erosion, and soil conservation. So these are the edaphic factors that we are going to consider one after the another. So today in this lecture, the edaphic factor that we are going to consider is soil composition. Now before we look into soil composition, let us first look into what is soil. So soil is actually an abiotic component, right? But the thing to know about soil is that though it is an abiotic component, it is made up of both biotic component and abiotic component. Soil, though itself is an abiotic component, it comprises of both biotic component and abiotic component. Now these biotic components are all the living organisms like plants, insects, microorganisms like fungi, bacteria, even the earthworms, and also the dead remains of all these organisms. So this is the biotic component of soil. All of these organisms, they reside in soil. Then what is the abiotic component? Abiotic component, it contains all the non-living matter like minerals, rocks, air and water. So the point to remember is that though soil is itself an abiotic component, it is made up of both a biotic component and abiotic component. So the study that deals with soil is called pedology, and since soil comprises of both biotic and abiotic component, we can say that soil is a biologically active matrix which becomes a home for diverse organisms, because huge n number of organisms live inside the soil, making it a biologically active matrix. Now that we know about soil, let us move into our first edaphic factor, which is soil composition. Now this soil is composed of mainly 4 types. These are mineral matter, organic matter, soil air, and soil water. So we can see in this figure that soil is composed of these 4 components. These are mineral matter. As you can see, mineral matter is 45%, that is maximum amount is of mineral water. Organic matter is just 5%, and the rest is, that is 25% is water and 25% is air. So the soil, as you can see, 50% of the soil is composed of air and water, whereas the rest 50% is composed of mineral matter and organic matter, of which maximum is mineral matter and just 5% is organic matter. Now we will look into the soil compositions, that is mineral matter, organic matter, soil air and soil water in more detail. So coming to what is mineral matter. Mineral matter are all the particles that are present in the soil. This mineral matter are mainly of 3 types. These are sand, silt and clay. Now sand, as you can see in the picture, most of us know this is being used in construction works, in building houses, in any kind of construction work, bridges, sand is being used. So it is a component of soil. Now the size of sand is the largest among all of these 3, with 0.05 to 2.0 mm diameter. So you can see in the image that sand has a big size, larger size, having pores present in it. So it has maximum porosity. Why maximum porosity? Because since the size of the particles are larger, the space present in between, the space that you can find in between is more, which is called the pores. This space is called pores, and since the size of the particle is larger, the pore in between is maximum, so it has maximum porosity. Now since it has maximum porosity, it has higher permeability for water. Since the pore is larger, it is obvious that water can easily pass through these pores, and hence sand becomes highly permeable to water. It will allow water to pass through it easily, and it has lower water retention. Obviously, when water can easily pass through it because of the pore, there are less chances that it will hold water. Since water is passing easily from pores, the particles will not hold the water, which explains the water retention. So higher the permeability for water, it would have lowest water retention. Now we will look into our next. First of all, we will look into what is clay. Clay, as you can see, is much more compact rather than sand. So clay is smallest of all the 3. Clay is its size is less than 0.002 mm diameter. So as you can see in the image, these particles are very closely packed, very small, and hence the pore spaces are also very small. And since the pore spaces are small, it will have minimum porosity. So porosity will be minimum. There will be very less space between the soil particles. And since the porosity will be minimum, it will have the lowest permeability. That means since pores are small, the permeability will be less. There will not be much space for the water to pass through, and hence Since water cannot pass easily, it has lowest permeability and highest water retention, because water is not able to pass through, and that means that the soil particles are holding on the water, so it has higher water holding capacity, which means that it has higher water retention. Now we consider our next part, which I kept for explanation last, because this falls between sand and clay, and hence silt is medium in size. That means that it is smaller than sand, but it is larger than clay. So its size diameter is 0.002 to 0.05 mm. So as you can see in the figure, the soil particles are larger than clay but smaller than sand. So the porosity is less than sand. Obviously this pore space is more and this pore space is less, but this space is more than clay, and hence it has porosity less than sand and more than clay. Permeability is less than sand and more than clay, because the pores here are smaller than sand, so it will be permeable, but it won't be that permeable as in case of sand. So it has less permeability than sand, and obviously it would be more permeable than clay. And since the permeability would be less than sand, the water retention is higher than sand, because the pore size is comparatively smaller, and therefore it will have a better water retention, because it won't be that permeable in comparison to sand. But clay is having higher water retention in comparison to all of these three. So this is the reason that why in clay, when we put water, after some time we can see that in a pot the water will not move down, because the clay has property of holding water, whereas if you put water in sand, we can see that the water will easily pass through it, because it has lowest water retention. Now, very important point, the mixture of all of these three is called soil mixture. What is soil mixture? It is combination of sand, silt and clay. When all these three particles are present together, that is the larger particles of sand, the medium particles of silt and the smaller particles of clay, it is known as soil mixture. So this is it about mineral matter that we have to remember. Apart from sand, silt and clay, the larger particles than sand that are present are called gravel, but gravel is not exactly a part of soil. Those are much larger in size than sand. Okay, so now we look into the next composition of soil, which is organic matter. Now, organic matter is any material left behind in the soil that can be decomposed into humus and redesigned into plant food material for the upcoming crop production. This is the definition of organic matter, but first of all, let us look into what are the three types of organic matter that are found in the soil. These are biomass, detritus and humus. Now, biomass is the mass of living biological organisms in a given area or ecosystem at a given time. So any living organism, maybe animals, birds, plants, insects, microorganisms, the biomass is a term given to the mass of all these biological organisms that are present. Biomass also refers to all the species biomass, that is, every single species has its own biomass, that is included in the term biomass. Community biomass, that is, many species when they are considered together, it forms a community. So likewise many other communities are present, and all of this community has its own biomass, along with all the microorganisms that are present in the soil as well as animals. All these are included in biomass. Now let us look into what is detritus. Detritus, as you can see in the picture, it is all the dead remains of organisms, maybe the dead remains of plants, animals, insects. So it is a dead particulate organic material, and it includes bodies or fragments of bodies of dead organisms and fecal material. So all the fecal material of animals is also included in detritus, and the organisms that feed on detritus are called detritus eaters. A good example of detritus eaters is earthworm. So from the biomass, things get converted into detritus, and from the detritus, when microorganisms feed upon this detritus then gets converted into humus. And humus is a Latin word meaning ground or earth. So humus is nothing but the rich content of the soil that is present is called humus. So it refers to the organic matter in the soil that has reached a state of stability where it will break down no further. So all this dead matter in detritus, it broke down and has reached to this stage which is called humus, and now this humus is in a stable stage where it will not break down any further. So this is just transformation from where biomass was present. From there it will get converted into detritus, and from detritus, after breakdown by microorganisms, when they act upon it, this gets converted into humus, and humus is the soil that is present, the rich soil that is present. It comprises of huge amount of organic matter which is rich, and this can be used for the plant to grow. So now we come to our definition, which mentions that organic matter is any material that is left behind in the soil. So this material is left behind in the soil, which is detritus, and this can then be decomposed into humus, and this gets decomposed into humus, and which can then again be redesigned into plant food material for the upcoming crop production. So this humus can again be used by plant, from which crop can be produced and food can be produced. So this is about the organic matter content of the soil. Now we take into consideration the next soil composition, which is also called soil water and resic water. So it is the amount of water present in the soil. These can be divided into three types. These are hygroscopic water, gravitational water and capillary water. So hygroscopic water, it forms a very thin film of water that surrounds the soil particles. So as you can see in the figure, these red particles are of soil, and the light blue color that you can see around it is water. So this is hygroscopic water, which is forming a very thin film surrounding the soil particles. Now what happens is that this hygroscopic water is bound tightly to the soil by adhesion property. So these soil particles, they are bound, this water particles is water molecules, they are bound tightly to the soil particle, and as a result they will not leave the soil particle. So it is by adhesion property. Adhesion is what? When there is force of attraction between water and any other particle, then it is called adhesion. So here is an attraction between water particle and soil particle, water molecule and soil particle. So this is adhesion property, because of which the water molecules here form a thin film around the water, around the soil particles. Now this kind of hygroscopic water you can find more in clay due to less pores. Now see what happens, that in clay, if you remember, we saw that the pore space is very less. Since the pore space is very less, obviously there will be more number of particles present. Now more number of particles are present, that means every particle is surrounded by hygroscopic water, and therefore clay will have higher percentage of hygroscopic water than silt or sand, because it has more number of soil particles and there is less pores present. So and very little of it can be taken up by plant roots. Now since it is very tightly attached to the soil particles, the plant roots cannot absorb this water, hence this water is not useful for the plants. Now we take our next type of water, which is gravitational water. This gravitational water, it is largely found in macropores of soil. Macropores means pores that are larger in size. So gravitational water is usually found in soil that has larger pores. So since it passes through larger pores, so it will flow freely from the soil, and therefore gravitational water is also known as free water. As you can see in the figure, there are soil particles and there are large pore spaces, and from that the water can easily flow. So since it flows down easily, this goes down because of the gravitational force of the earth, and therefore it is also known as gravitational water, because there is so much space that it can freely flow through it, and therefore this water is also of very little use for the plant, because it does not remain available to the plant and it directly drains down into the water table. All the water, it goes down into the water table. It is more in higher percentage in sandy soil. Sandy soil, if you remember, that it has more pore size present, more number of pores present, macropores present, and therefore the water can easily flow through it. So it will have more amount of gravitational water rather than hygroscopic or capillary water. Now we look into what is capillary water. These capillary water are held in the micropores of the soil. That means that it is present in smaller pores of the soil. What works in capillary water? The cohesion and adhesion force of the soil micropores are stronger than the force of gravity. So what is mentioned here, that the soil particles has strong cohesion and adhesion force. That means adhesion, as I mentioned before, it is the tightly bound property between water and the soil, and cohesion is between particles of the same type. So when this cohesion and adhesion of the soil micropores are stronger than the force of gravity, it is termed as capillary water. So capillary water has a stronger force than the gravity of the earth, and therefore it is known as capillary water. So capillary, if you remember, if you know, capillary has molecules going in one line. So that same principle applies here, where all the molecules of water, they pass through in a capillary formation, and this is the this is the figure of the capillary water, where you can see that there is a cohesion and adhesion force between soil and water molecules. So this is the water actually which remains available to the plant gets all the capillary water rather than hygroscopic or gravitational water, because capillary water is the water which plant can actually take into by their roots. But if the soil dries out, for example, if the soil dries out, the pore size will increase. Since the soil, if in any case the soil will dry out, the size of the pore will increase, and if the size of the pore increases, what will happen, that this will get converted into gravitational water, because when the pore size increases, water can move freely, and then the capillary water will be termed as gravitational water, which will not be useful for the plant to absorb. So this is the main water that is available to plants, as it is trapped in the soil solution. So this is about soil water. Now we move towards our next composition of soil, which is soil air. Now soil air mainly comprises of all the gases. These gases are mainly carbon dioxide, oxygen and nitrogen. Where are these gases present? These gases are present in the pore spaces of the soil particles, and these gases are same as those gases present in the atmosphere, but the composition is different than the atmospheric air. Atmospheric air also has carbon dioxide, oxygen and nitrogen, but the composition there differs. What is the difference in composition is that in the soil air, carbon dioxide level is higher. The carbon dioxide level in soil is higher. The oxygen level in soil is lower, and nitrogen level is equal to that of atmospheric nitrogen. So this is in comparison to atmospheric air. What happens in atmospheric air, the carbon dioxide level is low, the oxygen level is higher in atmospheric air, but the nitrogen level is equal to that of the atmospheric air and soil air. So in soil air, carbon dioxide is higher, oxygen is lower, and nitrogen oxide is equal to the atmospheric nitrogen content. Now, why soil has more carbon dioxide is because the answer lies in because of the respiration of plant roots and microorganisms present in it. All the microorganisms, large number of microorganisms are present in soil. Huge and large amount of plant roots, plants are present in soil, trees are present in soil. All of these respire. And what is the process of respiration? It is the intake of oxygen and throwing out of carbon dioxide. So by the process of respiration, of plant roots and microorganisms. They throw carbon dioxide into the soil and absorb and take in oxygen from the soil. As a result, the carbon dioxide content goes high and oxygen content goes low. So this is about the soil air composition, and with this we come to the end of this lecture, where we have completely explained the soil composition. So that is it for today. I'll be back with another video lecture with a continuation of this topic. Till then, I hope you all will clear your doubts regarding this lecture. Thank you.